Hello and welcome back to The Drag Detective, where today we're going to be talking about which of the All-Star winners were maybe pre-planned from the jump. This has been something that has been thrown around ever since the very first All-Stars, which Chad Michaels won. People famously said that the entire season was made just to crown Chad Michaels because she about to die. Especially after the most recent All-Star season, there are more conversations happening now about how they cast All-Stars, how they choose the winners, and is it really all just pre-planned from the jump? So we're going to go through each All-Star season, talk about the winner, talk about do I believe that it was pre-planned. I do believe there are some, I don't believe that there are all. And we're also going to dive into the Versus the World and International All-Star seasons and just kind of break down what I think about each of these winners and their standing coming into the competition. Did production already see them as a winner, or did they have to fight tooth and nail to get that crown? But before we get into all of that, I have been pretty open about my mental health struggles throughout my entire time making this channel, and therapy has been something that has truly helped me a lot. And I think that therapy should be way easier to access and so much more affordable than it currently is in this country. So today's sponsor, Grow Therapy, is here to help push therapy in the right direction. They make it easier to access, more affordable, and more fit to real life. Grow Therapy has over 19,000 providers, both licensed and vetted, that you can filter through gender, identity, language, and more to find the perfect fit for you. You can meet in person or online, and with all of their providers, they have very easy to access bios with specialties and credentials so that you know exactly who you are meeting. Grow Therapy is also incredibly insurance friendly, working with over 100 insurance plans and even Medicaid in some states. Sessions can cost around $21 with insurance, and depending on your plan, you could pay up to $0. And with how much I was paying in therapy, that is an insane number. And as I've mentioned lately, I am now on my medication journey, and if that's something that you're interested in, Grow Therapy can connect you with psychiatrists to help. Grow Therapy has over 1 million users and a 4.7 rating on Trustpilot, so find a therapist that fits you and have no blind matching. If you want to learn more about Grow Therapy, scan my QR code or click the link in the description down below. Thank you so much to Grow Therapy for sponsoring today's video, and everybody, take care of those noggins. Now, the very first season of All Stars, all the way back in 2012, this is where the conversation started happening, because people noticed that there might have been a little bit of favoritism towards the winner of that season, Chad Michaels. And people were just starting to say that they made this entire season just to give Chad the win. And this one, I kind of go back and forth on, for the reasons why I do think that this was maybe made in order to crown Chad. There was definitely a little bit of favoritism, just a little teeny tiny bit. Especially in the makeover/girl group episode, where Chad and Chanel probably could have been in the bottom, but there was definitely some worries there as they were in the final 6 with Yara Sofia and Alexis Mateo and Jujubee and Raven, and let's be real, all 4 of them could probably beat Chad or Chanel in a lip sync, so instead Chad and Chanel were given the win. But I would say like every other placement on the season for them was deserved, and even like they lip sync in the premiere, like they are in the bottom in the very first episode. So I do think maybe there was a little bit of saving them from going home later on, and they were definitely up against someone that they could easily send home in the premiere with Mimi on First and Pandora Box, but there was a little bit of favoritism. And I actually find that there are more reasons why this wasn't a pre-planned win than reasons why there was. So the first thing is, who knows who she would have ended up with as her partner? Imagine she ends up with like Mimi I'm First or Tammy Brown as her partner. 2 people that probably would not have been excelling on this season no matter who their partner was. And the way that they chose partners, it was completely not random, but they basically had to like say who they wanted, and whenever there was a match, they would then go off. And Chad and Chanel matched, which is great, and Chanel is a great competitor, so that worked out well for Chad. But there is like the possibility that no one wants to work with Chad, and she ends up with someone like at the very end, and then she just gets dragged down by them. So that in itself means I don't think that they had like 100% plan for Chad to win preseason. Now, you could say, okay, now that she ended up with a pretty good partner, they could obviously push them to the end and ensure that Chad wins. But I also think that the same could be said for the winner of season 4, Sharon Needles. Like, I think if Sharon didn't win season 4, then she would have been cast on All Stars. Clearly, she was in the vote. And I think people would also be saying that they would be doing whatever they could to crown Sharon. But I also believe that just the way that they ran the finale, where they like split up the groups basically, and the top 2 were just the 2 that did the most well in that finale, Raven and Chad. I think that's kind of setting up Chad just a little bit, because Raven was a huge fan favorite. A lot of people felt like Raven should have won season 2 at the time, and, you know, I think now we all wish that Raven had won season 2. So having her be in the top 2 with someone that the fans like loved so much, I just think was a little bit unfair to Chad. I think if it had been just Chad and Chanel in the top 2, then you could just crown Chad and like no one would have been upset. But putting her up against Raven was like a little bit shady, because obviously the fans are going to be rooting for Raven a lot. So do I believe that they wanted Chad to win? Yes. Do I believe that they planned it from like the preseason when they were casting the show? Not this time. No, I really don't. I just think that there's too many factors that come into play with like the team twist that I don't think that they could have fully planned the winner preseason. And again, this is like the first All-Stars. They were just kind of trying stuff out. I think that in later seasons we'll see that once they have their like bearings and they know what they're doing, they can kind of like, you know, rig things a little bit more. But I think for this first season, they were just kind of doing what they could. Now for All Stars 2, we have Alaska, and a lot of people feel like she was planned to win from the jump. And I definitely see that. I think that there was a couple of times where she maybe could have been in the bottom, specifically the Queens of Herstory Rusical. I think that she was not the best as Eve and could have definitely been in that bottom 2, but was saved. She didn't have her first bottom placement until the penultimate episode, where she had her tantrum. And allegedly and famously, a producer later told Alaska if she didn't have that tantrum, she would not have won the season. And it probably would have gone to like, I know a lot of people say that Katya probably would have won, but I'm thinking they probably would have given it to Detox. Because they were kind of like throwing Katya in the bottom in times where she didn't necessarily deserve it, but Detox was definitely someone I think the production really liked, and I think she would have been a huge person to like carry on the crown. I think that they wanted Alaska to win, but I think that they weren't getting what they wanted from Alaska until the very end of the season. I mean, she had said in interviews multiple times that she was really holding herself back, and she was really kind of trying to be this like perfect, pristine, I'm not going to upset anyone, I'm not going to do anything that's going to like turn the audience against me, turn production against me. But by doing that, she was suppressing all the things that make Alaska Alaska. And it wasn't until she had that outburst that I think production was like, okay, this is the Alaska that we like. She was bringing that, she finally brought it to this season, and we can crown her. I do think that going in, there were just so many people that were like huge standouts. Alyssa, Alaska, Ginger Minj was someone that they loved on season 7. I think there were just so many options that I think that they had maybe a couple people in mind that they were willing to crown. And as the season progressed, it became more and more clear to them that they wanted to crown Alaska. They just needed her to be herself more. And once she did that, they were able to crown her. So I think that she was among the list of people at preseason that they wanted to crown, but I don't think they made the whole season to crown Alaska, if that makes sense. Now, season 3, All Stars 3, we have Trixie Mattel who won. And this is kind of like many things had to go awry that led to Trixie's win. Not saying that she didn't deserve it, but there were just many different things happening, like Ben de la Creme quitting, and then the jury twist kind of voting out Shangela that led to the top 2 of Trixie and Kennedy, where clearly between the two, Trixie had the better track record. Trixie was more beloved by fans. And because the internet was so in love with Trixie and everything she was doing at the time, I just think that they knew that she would have a bigger, like, pull as the winner of the show. Now, a trigger alert, I am going to be talking about Shangela for a second. So, Shangela, I think, would have won this season, hands down. If she had made that top 2, I think she would have won, even against Trixie. I just think that Shangela is one of those queens that the show really, really, really loved at the time, and was kind of a staple for the show. I mean, this is her 3rd season that she was on. This is the first time someone had been on 3 seasons. And I think that she would have won if she was in that finale. But because of the jury twist, she was voted out, and Trixie was then kind of the best option. And again, before that, if Ben de la Creme didn't leave the competition, then I think that she would have won. So I don't think that they planned for Trixie to win from the start. I think that they planned on like juicing Trixie for all that she was worth because she was kind of a really big star at the time. But I do think that they had other options. I don't think the season was built for Trixie to win. I mean, there were definitely times that she was safe in those first couple of episodes, that if they were wanting her to be like the main character, the main threat, the main like queen running everything, they could have put her in the top. But I think that she had a pretty fair track record and maybe could have even been boosted up a little bit more if they wanted to. I think this was the Ben and the Shangela season, and they were really rooting for either of those two to take it. And I think Trixie was kind of like the backup to the backup. So no, I don't believe that Trixie was planned to win from the jump. But kind of like in season 2, I think they came in with a couple people that they really were excited to crown. And I think that is the smartest way to go. I think putting all your chips in one basket is just a little bit too risky. And we see that when they do that, it doesn't work out and it's very transparent. But having a couple options that you're like, we would be fine with any of these people winning, I think just makes a lot more sense. And I think is what led to seasons 2 and 3 of All Stars both being pretty fair for the most part. I mean, there's a couple things that are rigged here and there, but for the most part, they're very fair. Now we're getting into the seasons where maybe it's a little bit more off the rails. Because All Stars 4, we have 2 winners. We have Monet X Change and we have Trinity the Tuck. And, I mean, obviously there's so many things that go awry in this season that led to that. Mostly Manila getting eliminated and Latrice kind of not doing as well as they had hoped. A lot of people say that they were planning a Manila and Latrice double win. And the more that I hear that conspiracy theory, the more that I believe it. And I don't want to dive too far into that because I think I do want to do another Drag Race conspiracy theory video soon. But I think there's so many things that are just like so well thought out for Manila and Latrice to be in those spots and like to be in the top 2 and to be doing all these things. And the lip sync songs, there's so many things on All Stars 4 that just lend itself to a top 2 of Latrice and Manila both winning the crown in the end. And then Latrice just doesn't perform super well and Manila gets Manila'd by Naomi Smalls. And so that leaves a finale with, I think, people that they liked, but not people they were planning on crowning. So I do believe that they had a preseason, this is who we're going to crown, and I think it was Manila and or Latrice. And so when that wasn't possible anymore, they then had to pivot in the finale, and it's what led to Trinity and Monet both winning. But, I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. These two, I love them both so much as winners. I think they've done so much for the show. And so maybe this should have just showed production that, like, you know what? The right thing might happen in the end. But that sure won't stop production. Because All Stars 5, this is where so many people were saying this season was built for Shea Coulee to win. And I definitely see a lot of the points. The main point being that there just weren't a lot of, like, powerhouses, like people who had done super, super well on the show previously, like in other All-Star seasons. And I would say All-Stars 4 is when we started to see that. But even All-Stars 3, like, Milk and Trixie Mattel were not, like, and even Morgan were not, like, known as being, like, huge Drag Race, you know, powerhouses. They were just powerhouses outside of the show. But All-Stars 4 is, I think, when we see the first 3 that go home, Jasmine Masters, Pheromone, and Gia Gunn, they're not known to be Drag Race powerhouses, and they were the first 3 to go home. And I think that they were kind of cast as, like, a cushion so that everyone that they really, really wanted to go far could make it, you know, a couple more episodes deep. And I think that's even more clear on All-Stars 5, because most of this cast is not great at Drag Race. I think that Shea Coulee is great at Drag Race. I think Ms. Cracker is great at Drag Race. Jujubee is great at Drag Race. Angina is good at Drag Race on her first season. Alexis Mateo did super well. And everyone else is just kind of in the middle. You could say that Blair did pretty well on season 10, but, like, Mayhem didn't do that well. Derek Barry didn't do that well. Mariah didn't do that well. India didn't do that well. So, like, half the cast is made up of people who are, like, good at Drag Race, and then half the cast is just not. So that's one reason that people believed it was kind of made for Shea. But then I would also argue that they put Shea Coulee in the bottom in episode 3, and she not nearly, but there was some discussion that she could have gone home. So I do think that kind of like the previous couple seasons, they had a couple people that they were willing to crown. And by a couple, I mean Jujubee or Shea. I think those are the two that they really liked and that they really wanted to see at the end. And I think they were willing to crown either. But I do think they had a preference for Shea because when they were the top two for the Snatch Game and either of them could have gotten the win, they did choose to give the win to Shea there. So I do think that they wanted Shea to win. I don't think they built the whole season around Shea. But we're getting closer to that happening, if that makes sense. All-Star 6, I think this is the last season of regular Drag Race All-Stars not built around one person. And not surprisingly, this is also the last, like, really, really well done season of All-Stars. There were so many wild cards. There were so many queens that didn't do well in their first season, but were slaying it on this season. And while I think that they really wanted to crown Ginger, and Ginger had the most rigging in her favor on this season, I think that by the time the season aired, they saw that people were not vibing with Ginger, and it really was between Raja and Kylie, and they thankfully listened to the fans and crowned Kylie. But it's not like they built the whole season around Kylie, and I don't think they built the whole season around Ginger either, because there were plenty of other people that I think they really did enjoy and were willing to kind of like put their eggs in their basket. I think of all of the most recent seasons of Drag Race All-Stars, this is the one that is the most, like, unpredictable, and you can't really necessarily see who production wants to win. Maybe that's also just because Ginger didn't win, but I definitely think that they were willing to kind of have some wiggle room with the season in ways that they weren't in future All-Star seasons. Kind of like Season 7 of All-Stars, which is the all-winner season, which I do believe they planned around a Jinx Monsoon win. So much so that they kind of like changed the rules of the finale and, give us the swish swish lip sync that Monet Exchange clearly devoured, and edited so many things that she did out of just to ensure that they could still crown Jinx. Even like the challenges, like I think about the TikTok dance challenge, and Jinx made it into a comedy challenge. It wasn't necessarily supposed to be a comedy challenge. It was a, let's make a TikTok dance. But Jinx made it funny, and so they kind of like changed the rules a little bit to allow that so that they could put her in the top again. And I think her biggest competition on that season, because they were so similar in what they were bringing, was the Vivienne. And I do think that they kind of maybe didn't give Vivienne all of her flowers because she was the direct competition to Jinx. They both do a lot of the same things, a lot of the same theater and comedy and singing and camp. And I don't think they could highlight Vivienne as much as they should have, because then it might take away some of the eyes from what Jinx was doing. But even throughout the season, any challenge that Jinx could have feasibly won, she did. I feel like looking at Jinx's track record, there aren't many weeks that she was like high but not in the top two, because every week that she did well, they made sure she was in that top two. And then, we saw what happened in the final lip sync. Like, they were going to make Jinx Monsoon the first two-time winner. And it makes sense, because look at Jinx. Look at what she's doing. She's on Broadway. She's on TV. She's everywhere. She is so successful. And I think that they really, really wanted to just have her highlighted on Drag Race one more time until she kind of, like, sleeked away into where she is now. Where, like, I think she's a little bit too big for Drag Race now. So it made sense. I understand. But I do believe the season was made for Jinx Monsoon to win. Okay, now we have All-Stars 8, which Jimbo won. And I also do believe that this season was made for Jimbo to win. Mostly because there just isn't many other people that I think they would be willing to give the crown to. I think the only other person is Candy Muse and Heidi N Closet. Heidi N Closet quit, and Candy Muse, they chose Jimbo over. I do believe that if Heidi didn't quit, they would have probably had Heidi in that finale with Jimbo. And then I don't know what they would have done. I think it would have been really hard for them to choose because they're both just such huge superstars. But I think once Heidi left, It was Jimbo. It was Jimbo. I mean, there were so many things that they did to ensure that Jimbo had a storyline, to ensure that Jimbo would be in the top. They had Pangina come in as a lip sync assassin and made sure that Jimbo won that episode so that they could lip sync, even though Jimbo did not deserve to win that episode. And this is kind of another thing where, like, there was only one challenge winner every week, but Jimbo was in the top constantly. The episode where she probably should have been in the bottom, the Rusical, she was safe so that she wasn't in any danger of going home. They very much protected Jimbo. The only time she was in the bottom is at the top 3, where they knew Candy Muse had an alliance with Jimbo and was going to be keeping her and sending home Jessica Wilde. So I do believe that they made this season for Jimbo to win. I really do. There's so many comedy challenges, and so much of this cast is not super comedy, and the people that are super comedy, they kind of made sure went home early, like Darian Lake and Kasha Davis, and obviously Heidi Closet left of her own volition. But even looking at, the last couple of episodes, there were no performance challenges super deep into the season, and that is Jimbo's major kind of flaw, is her performance ability. The last couple of episodes were all either comedy or looks, design, and those are two things that Jimbo is incredible at. So, they had like 2 or 3 performance challenges really early on in the season where like there were multiple people they could choose to be in the bottom over Jimbo, not so much at the end. So I just really do believe that this was made for Jimbo. Just like how I believe All Stars 9 was made for Angeria, because much like Jinx, if there was an opportunity for Angeria to win, she won. I think of all of the most recent winners, Angeria is the one who is like destined to be a star. Destined. And I almost feel like the way that the season played out and how not everyone was thrilled with Angeria's win kind of diminished that a little bit. Like when she won, I mean, I was definitely annoyed. Other people were definitely annoyed. Not necessarily that it was her that was winning, but just the way that it went down and the way that they kind of like rigged that last episode to ensure that she would be in that finale. And then, she lost the lip sync to Roxy, but she still won the season. I think that if they were going to do that, they should have then immediately made Angeria the pit stop host. Angeria is literally carbon built to be the pit stop host. Why has she not been the pit stop host? That is such a no-brainer to me, and I think that if they want to really prop Angie up as one of the like titans of Drag Race, that is how you do it. You know what I mean? Like, I really hope that for season 18 and for All Stars 11 that she is the pit stop host. I think that is destined for her. I think that people are kind of over Monet. I don't think we need to see Trixie do another season, but giving Angie that opportunity is what I think what she needs to kind of propel to that next level that I think that production saw her going to, that we see her going to, but she just hasn't hit yet. So I think that it was definitely between Roxy and Angeria who was going to win that season. I think that, they had a golden opportunity to crown Roxy and they didn't. So I do think that season was made for Angeria to win. And I also think that season 10 of All Stars was made for Ginger Minj to win. Because just everything about that season, it just reeks of, here's how Ginger can win. Here's how we can like manipulate events to ensure that Ginger is fine. Every challenge that Ginger did on that season was like tailor-made for her. First it was a design challenge, which is something she's not great at, but it was a wicked theater comedy design challenge. And then it was a girl group challenge, which maybe she's also not the best at, but it was a country girl group challenge, which is right up Ginger's alley. And then it was an improv challenge, which obviously we know she's going to slay. Then it was the Snatch Game. Then it was a talent show where she can just show off her theater props. And then in the lip sync tournament, which is definitely where I think that we could have seen Ginger slip up, because there were so many fierce dancers on this cast. Aja, Georges, they made sure that she wasn't going up against them, and that when she was in the final lip sync against Georges, it was to a song that she could camp up with It's Raining Men. And even when she then lost that lip sync, she still won the season. I think that All Stars 10 is the most clear to me, looking at all of the things that happened, how they were kind of spinning things to ensure that Ginger Minj was going to win. I think of all of the seasons I've talked about thus far, it is the most clear and the most, like, obvious how and why they wanted Ginger Minj to win. And again, I think it kind of undercuts Ginger a little bit, because people aren't always going to be mad at production. They're going to be mad at who they're favoring. And a lot of people were mad at Ginger, especially, when she won the lip sync against Denali, when she won the lip sync against Carrie. There were just many moments that were infuriating to watch as a viewer. And I do think that the audience will take that out on the queen sometimes, which is unfair, absolutely unfair. But I just think that maybe this wasn't the best thing for Ginger Minj, but it's clear why they would want her to win. I mean, she is such a star. She is so talented. She's come so close so many times before, and that's why I keep saying they should have crowned her on season 7 when she truly deserved to win the whole thing, and then we wouldn't have to deal with any of this. So that is it for the mainline seasons, but we are going to talk about Versus the World and International All Stars. Starting off with UK Versus the World, this one I think threw production for a whirl, because I think the people that they really liked, Jujubee and Mo, were underperforming. I think that the people that they were then willing to crown over them, Jimbo and Pangina, got sniped. So Blue Hydrangea kind of was the best option at that point. I think that they would have crowned Baga, but she kind of was just not, she was over it that whole season. She was just over it. So I don't believe, I don't know, I do believe that maybe they came in wanting to crown Jujubee, because why else would you cast Jujubee so close? But I think they quickly realized, okay, maybe this isn't going to happen, and they were able to pivot. But that season is just production pivoting every episode, because so many things are happening that they're not expecting, which is how we end up with a Blue Hydrangea win. But I think that, watching the season, her win makes complete sense to me. I don't think that production planned it ahead of time, but I think it does make sense. Now, for UK Versus the World 2, I hate saying this because I love this queen so much. I do think that Tia Kofi was planned to win from the jump. I do think that she did a great job on the season, but she had so much favoritism. Some of her wins, I think, could have gone to other people. Some of her bottom placements that she should have gotten, I think they didn't give her. And then in the finale, I think that they clearly wanted to get rid of Le Grand Dame and Marina, two people that were from non-English speaking franchises. Philippines has a little bit of English. It's Tagalogish to Inglalog. They do a mix of Tagalog and English, but I just don't think that they were going to be crowning someone not from an English franchise, unfortunately, which I think is bullshit. But let's just be real here. So having Marina in the top 2 with Tia would be hard for Tia to then really win that lip sync. So they made sure to rig out Marina so that it could just be Hannah and Tia can easily win the season. I love Tia. I think she's wonderful. I think that she's a great representative of the UK drag. I do think they plan the season to crown her. I very much do. Canada Versus the World, maybe a little bit less so. It's hard. I think that they should have planned it to crown Isis again, because Isis came in and should have been, her track record, Isis's should have been top 2, top 2, top 2. She slayed those first 3 episodes and only got 1 of those 3 wins. So clearly they didn't plan the season to crown Isis. You could say that they made it to crown Raja because she didn't have the best track record. I don't think her track record was rigged at all, though. I think her placements were pretty fair. But I do think her winning in the end over Silky, who had just a much better track record, a better storyline, and a better final lip sync, I do think that maybe they wanted to crown Raja, especially because she had just been on All-Star 6 and people loved her. And I think they maybe were trying to capitalize on that. But you also had Victoria Scone, who was great. Obviously, we know production over in Canada and Crave love Rita Baga. So I don't believe that they made the season to crown Raja, but I think once Raja was in that finale, it was hard for them to not give her the crown, if that makes sense. As for Canada vs. the World 2, this is kind of the opposite of Ginger Minj winning All Stars 10. They absolutely made the season to crown Lemon, but Lemon absolutely killed the season and deserved the win. I really don't think any of Lemon's wins were that rigged. Her runways were great. Her lip syncs were great. I think that Lemon killed that season. And even though I do believe that they were going to crown her regardless, she absolutely deserved all of the praise and all of the wins and all of the, things that she got from being on that season. She killed it. Now for Espana All Stars, a lot of people think that Drag Sethless, was planned to be crowned from the jump. I don't think it was from the jump. I think that they saw how well she was doing, and I think that they knew that people loved her and thought she should have gone farther in her first season. So I think, like, as the season progressed, they were realizing, okay, we're gonna do Sethless. So I don't think it was the whole season was planned around Sethless the same way that the whole season was planned around, like, a Ginger Minj or a Jimbo, but I definitely think that once the season was in motion, they kind of knew what they were going to do. Then we have France All Stars, my second favorite season of the year. Or is it my first? It might be my first. It might be my first. I don't believe that it was planned around Mami Wata winning. I think that she was someone they enjoyed. I think that they were, hoping she did well. But there were so many powerhouses on that season, and so many people that clearly production and the audience loved. But I think there was a pretty fair season overall, and Mami Wata blew the whole season out of the water and absolutely deserved the win. I don't think it was planned around her win, though. Then we have Drag Race Slaysian Royale, which was just recently won by Brigading, my fucking queen. I love Brigading. I was rooting for her from episode 1, and I don't believe the season was planned around her winning. I think it's like a Lemon thing, where, like, I think that they wanted to crown Brigading, but she also just slayed the whole competition. Literally, the one episode that she wasn't in the top, she should have been. So, like, actually, it's more of like a Drag Sethless thing. It's a Drag Sethless thing, where, like, I don't think they planned the season around crowning Brigading, but once they saw what she was doing and bringing to the show, they were like, oh, yeah, let's crown Brigading. Let's do it. I don't think her track record was rigged. I don't think they pushed her at all. She was just that good and was in the top, like, almost every single week. So, love Brigading. If you haven't watched Slaysian Royale, it is a crazy, crazy season. It's insane. You should absolutely watch it. Most of it is also in English, because I know I'm someone that doesn't just like to read subtitles the whole time, but there's a lot of English in it, so it's not hard to get through if you're, like, not a subtitle person. And then lastly, and maybe most egregiously, we have Global All Stars, which was won by Alyssa Edwards. Do I believe that Global All Stars was created to give Alyssa Edwards a crown? Yes. I think it is clear as day that is what they were planning on doing. I think that they were trying to have their cake and eat it too. We want to crown a U.S. queen that has, a crownless U.S. queen who is, so big, so beloved, but also we want to prop up all these international divas. So by doing both, like, everyone wins, right? But then they're undercutting all of these international divas in order to prop up a U.S. queen who did well on the season, but not that well. She was safe for a lot of it. She probably had a bottom placement or two that she should have had that she didn't. And there were plenty of other queens who were doing a far better job throughout the season than Alyssa was. Pythia, Nalenia, I'd say even Queen, and probably Kitty as well. So I do believe that Global All Stars is it's like the prime example of how you build a season around one person and piss off the entire fandom in the process. So those are all of the current All-Star seasons. Let me know what you think. Do you think that any of the people that I said it wasn't, built around to win, it actually was? Do you think that someone that I said it was built around, it actually wasn't? I want to hear your thoughts and opinions. I also want to thank, yet again, Grow Therapy for sponsoring today's video. I have my purple backdrop up because Drag Duel is still happening. We're on episode 4. We just did our music video challenge where they all made music videos to songs from The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess by Chappell Roan. And it was probably the strongest round in Drag Duel history. The runways across the board were fantastic. The music videos were fantastic. This cast is delivering and killing and serving. So if you have not watched and supported Drag Duel, I very much think you should. I'm very proud of this season, and we're getting some very, very good reviews thus far. So thank you to everyone who is watching and supporting. I truly appreciate it. The links to all of my social medias are in the description down below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then what are you doing? Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will catch specifically you, in the next one.